Happy Daylight Savings Time, Monday, March the 10th. The Environment and Transportation's Committee, Subcommittee of Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Open Spaces. We will be going through 5 bills today. I mistakenly put HB 832 on the list. It has a hearing, I believe, on Wednesday, so that is my mistake. Please forgive me. Um, we're going to start with HB 494. This is Delegate Allen's bill, the Recreational Equality for Service Members Act. I understand that we've been waiting for HGO, but I think it's appropriate just to move the bill. And so when it is ready, I'm assuming an HGO, that we can then just move it along with the rest of them. Can I have a motion to move the bill unless there are any amendments, Patrick?
First of all, HGO has moved.
They have moved. Okay, good. It's all the
And
better.
I've looked through it. There's nothing really that's contradictory in here with what they've done. There are amendments to this bill. This is the what's it called? Recreational
Can you guys hear
Equity for
me?
Service.
Service Members Act.
What's the question? This is HB 494. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Patrick. I thought there was a question.
Okay. All right. And this bill as it stands, it just equalizes the effect of the application of various benefits for veterans to all members, active service members and veterans and the like. It deals with issues such as the Healing, Hunting, and Fishing Act, which was originally a Simon Air bill. Deals with fishing clinics and instructional opportunities for veterans. It also deals with recreational tidal fishing licenses. And then it adds in provisions that codify the free access to state parks for members of uniformed services and the like. Now, I don't know what the subcommittee feels, but I think they might have missed a couple of things here.
Where?
As I said, they addressed the recreational tidal fishing licenses, but they didn't address non-tidal recreational licenses or hunting licenses.
Do veterans currently have a special license for either one of those?
Well, yes, they get exemptions from the license fees and the like. Exactly the same that's shown for the recreational title in the bill under it's on page 6, 4217.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same language for all three of those. I'm kind of surprised they missed those, but
Maybe there's a reason why.
well, we could move it provisionally, and I could check with the House sponsor, Delegate Allen, and maybe through him or with him.
Delegate Guyton, can you please mute yourself? Okay. And I'm wondering,
I think it was just an oversight. It's my suspicion.
Yeah. Okay. Is DNR on the call? I just wanted to check in with them.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Uh, uh, did you worked on this bill with the sponsor?
I did not, but I can follow back up with Patrick and, we can address whatever issues or concerns there may be.
Okay, I think he's just saying that they missed a provision. They missed a license in this bill as they were addressing veterans.
Mhm.
What they did, Emily, is they fixed up the provisions relating to the recreational title licenses, but not the recreational non-title and
Right,
not the
okay.
hunting licenses.
Okay.
And like I said, Madam Chair, we could move forward provisionally and vote. And if we have to bring it back to subcommittee, we'll do so.
Or we can bring whatever amendment we need to the voting session.
To the full committee voting
Yeah.
session. Right.
Is there a motion to move the amendments?
So move, Madam Chair.
Second, amendments have been moved and seconded. Are there any discussions on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, is all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Amendment moves bill as amended.
So
Move the-
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the bill as amended? All in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The bill moves favorably to full committee. I want to go to, let's go to Patrick, HB 1322.
Okay, this is, Chair paying a Melnick's bill on the requirement for carbon monoxide warning signs on vessels. There are two proposed amendments. One to name it after Matthew's Law, and then to apply to vessels manufactured after July 1st, 2007, 31st, excuse me, 2007. Both from the sponsor of the bill.
Okay, can we, I'm looking for my reprint really quickly. Delegate Foley. Was there a reprint for this bill?
No.
There
Just,
was not.
Meredith should have the amendments.
Yeah, I have the amendments. I was just wondering if there was a reprint. Thank you. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I asked this question during the hearing, and I really support this bill. I think it's an important bill. I will vote for it either way, but I'm just wondering if we don't want to specify in the bill that what the warning should say. I think the bill sponsor's answer was, well, when you order these warning labels, they all, pretty much say the same thing. And I take her word for it, but I don't know I think it is really important considering this, what prompted this bill that the warning labels say the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning so that people are aware when they start to feel the dizziness and whatever, that they're in trouble. So I don't know if that's what the subcommittee would like to do, but I thought I would raise it and just see what people, what you think, Madam Chair.
Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate Delegate Foley's intent. My only concern with that would be if we're too prescriptive about what it would say, that it might preclude buying off-the-shelf labels, which would increase the cost.
So Delegate Foley, what, I guess I'm a little confused. What more do you want it to do?
Well, I mean, it's very general. It just says that there should be a warning label. And again, I'm going to support the bill either way, but a warning labels as fixed in a conspicuous location in the vicinity of both the transom and the helm of the vessel. So I asked the question during the hearing about whether the warning labels, we should prescribe what the warning labels say, even in general terms, because a warning label might just say, this vessel has carbon monoxide. Does that do anything? Or are we concerned? I mean, the whole point of the bill, I thought, was because Matthew came down with all these symptoms and didn't realize that he was being poisoned, that he kept going. And so,
I
normally,
thought the label does speak to that.
well, you buy the labels commercially, and we're assuming they do. And that's what I'm asking. Should we put something like that in the bill?
If you Google the warning labels, you'll see them come up. They're pretty standard.
That's what she said in answer to my question. Yes.
So standard in that they
And
say,
they're free too.
well, let's look it up.
And
Oh, they do.
yeah.
They actually say, I mean, I can share my screen. They say, warning, carbon monoxide. It says a colorless, odorless, may cause dizziness, nausea, headache, excessive exposure. Yeah, it gives some quick. Do you want to see one of these labels?
No, I mean, it sounded, yes, but it sounded like that's what the sponsor said, exactly what you're talking about. But the bill just says warning labels is fixed and conspicuous. It doesn't even say you have to buy them. It just says warning labels. So if I put
But I
on
think
boat-
if you're a boat I mean, I don't know. I think if you're on a boat, I think you would know what that means. I don't think.
all right, again, I support the bill either way. I just wonder if we want to do that. That's
It
all.
says has a carbon monoxide warning label affixed in conspicuous locations.
But yeah. It doesn't say a commercially available carbon monoxide warning label. It just says a warning label. And you
It
know,
says a carbon monoxide warning label. It doesn't
correct.
say
It says
warning
a
label.
carbon monoxide warning label. But if I write in my own handwriting, there's a carbon monoxide engine on this boat, or this boat emits carbon monoxide, is that a warning label?
I think it's clear. I mean, I'm happy
Okay,
to have
fine.
this further discussion. No, it's not fine. We
No,
can
I mean,
have
I
the
don't want to hold up the
discussion.
bill. Yeah.
Because what I hear you saying is that this this doesn't distinctly say that one should get an actual purchased label other than maybe I write something on here. But I think it's assumed. But Patrick,
Yeah, I'm here.
they say they've been required since 2007, per my notes from the hearing.
Correct. I think there's commonly understood within the industry.
Okay.
Firefighters can provide them for free. You can buy them online. Um, uh, there any other questions? Any other clarifications? Delegate Jacobs, you have a boat. Can you clarify if this makes sense or not?
I don't think it's necessary. I think the warning label is sufficient in what it does. You know, we don't get a prescriptive language on a detector, you know, carbon monoxide detector. I think it's sufficient the way, with the warning label.
Do you have one on your boat?
Yes. I got a diesel.
Yeah.
But I mean, some of these boats, it doesn't say what size boat in the bill either. They could be a little outboard boat. And
It says a gasoline powered vessel.
yeah, that's right. So that could be a 12-foot little runabout. You don't need half a stern inside with a warning label on there. I mean, I think it's a little overkill personally, but whatever everybody wants to do.
You think the bill is overkill in general?
No, I said to get too descriptive of the warning label. I think
Understood.
the warning label is sufficient. Personally,
Okay.
I've seen them, and I mean, if you're not, that's the whole point of the warning label.
Sure. Next time I'm on your
Madam
boat,
Chair.
I'm gonna check. Yes.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble safely putting up my hand, but I do have a question if this
Yes.
is appropriate time.
Yes.
Why did we decide only to require them for boats after 2007 and not before?
That's the date that they were required to be put on.
Oh, that's right.
Are boats before 2007 safer?
No, they just probably wouldn't know of the requirement. Could get cited for something that they weren't required to have.
So the original law was in place in 2007.
It's not actually a law, it's a manufacturer's.
The 2007 requirement is a manufacturer requirement.
Yeah, it's not a state law.
Got it.
And I believe it might be a federal guidance rule of some sort.
Delegate Guyton. Delegate Guyton, did we lose you? I think we did. Delegate Ruth, I thought you saw your hand up.
My question was answered, Madam Chair.
Delegate Guyton, did you have a further?
I'm so sorry. I'm gonna pull over in 1 second. No, I was just wondering why we didn't go ahead and extend it to all boats that might have this problem. And I'm sorry I lost you right after I asked that question.
I think Patrick was saying because per a manufacturer requirement from 2007, that's what they're lining it up to, as I understand it.
Would there be opposition to saying for all boats who have this sort of motor that would be a danger? But my concern is that older boats may be even more poorly maintained and may be more dangerous than newer boats.
Well, the question
I mean,
is how many individuals have a boat that's made and or purchased before 2007?
Actually, I think you'd be surprised.
I'm just asking the
I
question.
grew up on the coast. I think there are a lot of old boats, but maybe Delegate Jacobs has a better idea.
Well, I think this was the amendment from the sponsor of the bill, correct?
Correct.
And
Correct.
I think this was a favorable with amendments from the Marine Trades Association. Is that correct?
I believe so. I can
There
triple
were
check.
two, the firefighters had one, they wanted something different.
Marine
Yeah.
trades, correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
but Marine Trades, I think this is the amendment Marine Trades was suggesting, and I think the sponsor came in with this amendment.
That is true.
All right, that's it.
I support the bill either way, but I don't know why we wouldn't extend it to all boats. But that's up to the will of the subcommittee.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Is there a desire to move the amendments?
I move the amendments.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just really quick, I did look up the Marine Trades testimony, and they did request that it be apply only to gasoline powered vessels manufactured after August 1st, 2007.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the amendments, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The bill is amended. Is
Move the bill as amended.
there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstentions? The bill moves favorably. We're gonna talk through HB 1342. Oh, no, wait a minute, that's Kristen. Let's go back to Patrick really quick. HB, is Kristen, well, Kristen, go ahead, and because the other two were just discussion. 1342.
Sure. Did you want to have the reprint brought up?
Yes, please.
Do you need me to do that, or is Meredith on?
Meredith can bring it up. Meredith, can you bring up the reprint for 1342?
Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you, Meredith.
So the bill is allowing the application of certain listed pesticides and restricts the application of certain registered pesticides on state-owned property. So Meredith, if you could scroll down to the next page. So in the definition section, we have definition listed pesticide is a defined term beginning on line 9. You can keep scrolling. And so the amendments add a definition for state-owned property, which would exclude land. You can stop right there. Yep. It would not include land owned or managed by the Department of Natural Resources or the State Highway Administration. And you could scroll to the next page. Here we have some clarifying language being added to the purposes for which certain pesticides could be applied on state-owned land. And down in section 5-1103 of the bill, this is the part of the bill that requires the department to develop a model pesticide management plan. The bill as introduced came in with also requiring a plan for pollinator habitat, which is something that the department already has. So that's being taken out of the bill. So this language is just applying to a model pesticide management plan. And the requirements for that are on the next page. And so there's an amendment adding language that an individual track plan must be developed on or before October 1st, 2026, and implemented on or before April 1st, 2027. And then there's an amendment to strike language that would have required the model plan to designate at least 20% of the unencumbered land as area that may not be treated by any aesthetic pesticide. One thing by taking out this this provision, there is a definition in the bill that relates to aesthetic pesticide, and that term's not used anywhere else. So I think that would just be a technical amendment. Would need to you could take that definition out of the bill as well.
I'm sorry, Kristen, you're saying the on page
So-
2, line 3, aesthetic pesticides should be removed?
Correct. I don't think that's used anywhere else in the bill. And so on page 4, that language that references an aesthetic pesticide is being taken out of the bill.
And is that it?
That's all I
That's
have.
it? Okay. Are there any questions? Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just wanted to clarify, it was going up and down very quickly. Would this still allow targeted pesticide use for invasive species?
Right. So there are purposes that are listed in the bill on page 3, starting in line 2 through lines 2 through 17, which includes controlling an invasive species.
Thank you.
Delegate Jacobs.
All right, here when during the hearing, I brought up questions about some of the organic pesticides that are actually more toxic to bees than others. And I mean, so just because it's organic doesn't mean that it's not harmful to bees. So I'm reading these amendments, I don't see anything in here that talks about that. And so, my question would be, if do these amendments remove the organic portion and defer to MDA's pesticide management plan? That's one question I have in the amendments.
So the amendment, so the listed, I think that you were referring to the definition of listed pesticide, which refers back to pesticides, which the active ingredients are recommended by the National Organic Standards Board. That definition has not been changed by these amendments, and the list, so that I don't think that's been
But
addressed.
my question is, do they defer back to the MDA's pesticides management plan? Is that in the amendments?
Not sure I'm following the question. So we have the department under the bill has to develop a model pesticide management plan, but the authorized uses and restrictions would still apply as written in the bill.
Because there's several organic pesticides, certified pesticides that are dangerous for bees. Hydrogen dioxide, pyrenthins, and spinosad. I mean, there are three things there. I just want to make sure they're omitted from it because they'll kill more bees and they're an organic.
Right. So if I can follow up on that question, I guess the question is the recommendation of the National Organic Standards Board. It says in coordination with 7 USC. Is that a federal regulation?
Correct.
And the question is, are our pesticide standards stricter than the federal government, or is it on the same?
I think we need to find this list and see what's published on the national list. I'm not sure if it's, if it's different. I can look for it now while
Okay.
you're delivering.
So I think Lindsay's on here somewhere, and she may be able to help with a
Okay.
little bit of clarification there if
Is Lindsay here? Oh,
you
there's
would,
Lindsay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Lindsay.
Thank you. Yeah, so I apologize. I wasn't able to be here for this hearing last week. I did submit written testimony. I think that a lot of the amendments do address some of the concerns that we raised in our testimony. The point that Delegate Jacobs is bringing up is that the bill defines a listed pesticide as either the organic certified pesticides or a minimum risk pesticide, and that's a designation by EPA. The organic certified pesticides are a list that is actually maintained by USDA. And so the bill allows for the use of these listed pesticides, which would include the organic pesticides, at business as usual, right? Whereas the registered pesticides, which are controlled under FIFRA at EPA, would only be allowed to be used for the specific purposes outlined in the bill, such as invasive species control, health risks, et cetera, agriculture. And so the concern was that we were basically saying that organic pesticides were safer for pollinators than their synthetic alternatives, which is not necessarily true of the entire list. So that was the concern that was raised in our testimony.
And I think that was the question Delegate Jacobs was trying to get to during the hearing.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking it. And
Yeah.
so, Lindsay, when you talk about the organics that are certified, and I just talked about them, hydrogen dioxide, pyrenthins, and spinosides. I mean, are you concerned with that?
So the concern would be that the bill is setting up the precedent that these organic pesticides are able to be used in all use patterns, not just for the purposes that are outlined as the exemptions in the bill. And theoretically, the premise of the legislation was pollinator protection because it referred to pollinator protection plans and designating certain areas of the state as pollinator habitats. And so by saying that synthetic pesticides could only be used for the purposes outlined in the bill, but organic pesticides don't have to, I think that sets up a little bit of an unrealistic expectation that that organic pesticides can be used and not potentially harm pollinators.
Got it.
That's
And
my
so
concern. That's my concern.
Our preference would be to defer to the Maryland Department of Agriculture in their pesticide management plan to set up the best practices for use of all pesticides, not just organic or synthetic.
I see, thank you so much, Lindsay, and thank you, Delegate Jacobs. I see Rachel Jones on the call. I know she was testifying somewhere else, but I would like to ask another clarifying question before we call on Delegate Foley and Delegate Ruth.
Sure, Madam Chair, I'm here.
So to, I guess, Delegate Jacobs and Lindsay Thompson's point, I guess, let me get this right. Does MDA have a list that is either on par with or stricter than the federal government?
I wouldn't say that we have, so obviously our guidance is we adhere to federal government standards, whether that's EPA or USDA, what have you. We adhere first to federal standards, and then of course we look at what state law says. So part of my answer to Delegate Jacobs' question during the hearing was, if MDA is being tasked in this bill to come up with a plan for each agency, then our entomologists in our pesticide regulation section would look at what types of pollinator species are located on that site and make a decision based on what they believe is best in that recommended pesticide management plan. And for us, it's not MDA doesn't have a preference for organic versus chemical or biological pesticides. It's about what's going to be best for the plant life that is located on that site. And so MDA, I don't see MDA staff at any point, whether under this administration or another, taking a position on preferring organic just because it's organic. But I understand the question that's being raised, and I understand the concern that folks have. But MDA's job is to do our pesticide regulation section. And their job is to make a recommendation based on what's going to be best for that site. And it's not about choosing one type of pesticide over another. So it's going to be about what's best for the pollinators on that site. And I did just want to toss in as well, because I did look into this. It was Delegate Healy's question about the neonicotinoids and the Pollinator Protection Act of 2016. Again, this bill would not conflict with that either. So we would not go and recommend neonicotinoids that were previously heavily restricted in the Pollinator Protection Act of 2016 if this bill were to pass.
Okay, and so it sounds like what you're saying is somewhat to the degree you're agreeing with Lindsay in
We're
that,
saying
that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, we're saying we don't have a preference. MDA doesn't have a preference for organic. And so if you all wanted to amend the bill to specify that, whether you do that or not, MDA is not just going to choose organic and make the assumption that that's automatically what's going to be best for the property.
But this bill does say that there is a best.
If that's the language that's in there, like I said, if the committee chooses to amend that, then, certainly that is at your discretion. MDA, we will do whatever whatever legislation passes, we'll do what's required. But our preference would be to look at what the site needs, what pollinators are currently growing there, and to recommend the very best product for that particular site.
We need to give MDA discretion. Delegate Foley. Delegate Foley.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, my question, if I could, is also for Rachel. This bill has a definition of invasive species. Does that conform to the other definitions in law of invasive species?
I don't have the definitions in front of me to compare it. I am sitting just outside of HGO. I don't have that definition in front of me at this time, but that's something I could look at and get back to you.
Get back to us, because I think we're going to hold this bill and then have some more discussion for tomorrow. But yeah, if you can get that, I keep wanting to call you Delegate Jones because you are Delegate Jones. Please get that to us. Delegate Ziegler and then Delegate Jacobs.
Gotcha.
Are you want to? Let's see if I can get you off mute.
Am I off mute?
There you go. Yep.
For some reason, my computer sound isn't working, so I'm doing this on my phone. So I just wanted to bring up the fact that both invasive species change and available chemicals change. So I don't want to be too prescriptive in here because, you know, new things come over and new things take over, and that's how that works. So I think leaving it to MDA best judgment with respect to invasive species as well is probably the best way of future proofing this. Thank you.
Okay. Delegate Jacobs.
That's sort of what I was going to say. I think if Rachel's still on there, she could go back to my original question with, you know, and when I asked, would these amendments remove the organic portion and defer to MDA's pesticide management plan? And I think that's what she's saying. Would you agree with that, Rachel?
Sure, Delegate. These current amendments don't seem to include that.
That's
If
what
that clears that up for you.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
where we want to go, though.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Lot of questions, so we're going to hold this bill, get some more information and kind of talk through it more tomorrow. For discussion, let's do HB 654, please. And we'll do about 5 or 10 minutes and then go to the next bill. This is the Wacomico County bill. Sunday hunting restrictions. This is certainly for discussion only. We know that these bills come to our committee every year, and we're gonna have a discussion, but at some point we're gonna have to have a real discussion. I've already talked to DNR about this in the interim because something's got to happen. There's got to be some medium. There's something we have to figure out something, because every year that I've been here, Sunday hunting bill has come within the rights of whoever is bringing it. But we have to start discussing, you know, some of the issues in certain places as it relates to Sunday hunting. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I couldn't get it off of mute. I just, you know, we did a couple of years ago, then Delegate Love did work out the 10:30 a.m. compromise, and I know there's some disagreement with that as well. I think that we did, you know, work to try to address this a couple of years ago. And so I just wanted to mention that.
Well, I know that's why, but they're still come every year, which is why we're still talking about it, which means we still have to find a solution. Because this bill, for instance, it is amended and removes public land and adds private land. And there's a question about whether or not what one can do on their property freely. So this is going to come every year, which means it's still an issue and we still need to have discussions. Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I see this because it's on private land only, the Wycomico County bill. I see this as a matchmaking problem only, because there is absolutely no restriction from hunting 365 days a year on your own property with crop damage permits. I think what's happening is that hunters are not getting matched with property. And, you know, we hunt on Sundays. Sometimes we don't allow it most of the time, but sometimes we do. It's really up to us. But I think what's happening is that, and I don't know if DNR is on the call, but Paul Pedito has said this frequently, that this is a matter of matching up hunters with property owners who want more deer killed and don't have time to do it themselves. Because you can perfectly well put somebody on your permit and have them hunting all day on Sunday, right
Hmm,
now without passing anything.
and there's that. Uh, do I see the assistant deputy? Is he on here? There he is.
I
Please
am, Madam Chair.
speak to this kind of mismatch.
Well, I mean, this is the discussion we had in I guess it was a sort of unofficial work group that was put together. There were a number of members of this subcommittee and a couple members of the Senate, and we worked for about a year to come up with some ideas. Sort of the, what's next in the suite of tools that we could add to managing deer in Maryland. And one of the things that I think we, as a group, landed on was this nexus. To the delegate's comment, I think is spot on. We have a number of hunters who are willing to take deer. 75% of the deer taken in Maryland are taken on private land. And yet we still have this delta of landowners who need help that haven't met the hunters. So it's sort of a, there needs to be a mechanism to do that. That's where this deer management sort of technical assistance concept came about, where we're going to put folks in the field to help facilitate that marriage, if you will. So we still think that's a tool that would be beneficial to both sides, really, the hunting community who are looking for places to access to take deer, and the agricultural community who are looking for a mechanism to get rid of deer and frankly monetize the opportunities to have hunters on their places.
Understood. Delegate Jacobs and Delegate Ruth.
All right. Don't go anywhere, Paul. One thing that's and this bill is as it's amended takes out public land, and that's important because it's a big difference between opening up to public and private. But if you go on private land, unless you own it and you're hunting on your own land, you got to ask permission, whether you're hunting or whether you're riding a horse. It's all about, you have to have permission to be on that land to hunt. And the one thing that's a misconception is there's not an enormous amount of shots fired by any means in deer hunting. It's a rare. You could sit all day, make one shot if you're lucky. If the deer comes along, the right one comes along. But you could, and this is what I'm gonna ask Paul, on your own private property, you could sit there and shoot trap all day with a skeet thrower all day long, couldn't you? By law, on your own private property.
Yeah, and absent a local ordinance, delegate you could shoot whatever.
Most counties don't have noise ordinances, so you could, in theory, have a skeet thrower on your property and throw 4 hours straight of nonstop shooting. Technically, that's what I'm saying. So the whole thing about what's the rights of this is kind of screwy in my opinion anyway, because there's a very few shots fired by anyone in deer hunting. And I hear a lot about this 10:30 restriction because they say it's just too early, that they can't hunt in the afternoons when most deer are moving, to get ready to go out in the fields and whatnot. And I do hear that complaint quite often, but I think that we need to focus on the fact that this is private property and it's private property rights, and you have to have permission. And the amount of shots being fired in deer hunting is very few versus anything else you can do on your property legally. I mean, technically you could get a skeet thrower out there and shoot 1,000 rounds, nonstop. That's perfectly legal. So it's really, I think there's a lot of misconception in this whole idea of what's going on here. But I think we need to focus on private property versus public property rights too.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate Jacobs. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I wanted to go back to what Delegate Ziegler and Assistant Secretary Pedito were talking about with the assistants matching hunters to farmers. And that was would be partially covered by the Delegate Allen's bill, is that correct? Where it would allow hiring some people to work on that matching, is that correct?
That was the correct, Douglas Ruth. That was the concept in the two non-lead pieces of that bill where the fox chasing was the revenue source for the deer management assistance team. That was the vision there.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussions? All right, we're gonna move on to the last bill for discussion is HB 731. The Wildlife Crossings bill.
Madam Chair,
I don't have, yes.
I think there are a couple of small amendments to this, and I don't see them in what was sent out.
I don't have, here it is.
I should
All
say,
right, you said you don't see.
I should say it was one amendment with two small changes.
Patrick, you received that, correct?
I don't have any officially drafted amendments. I know of some suggested amendments.
Okay, so
They-
let's,
They were, Madam Chair, sorry. They were officially drafted. I thought that I sent them, but I can resend those.
hold on, I'm gonna double check because I thought I added. When you sent them, you didn't send them just to me because I remember seeing them.
I sent them on February 25th to you and Patrick. I will forward them again.
Nope, I have it here. Yep, I have it right here. And the chair was on it. Yep. I have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I found it. Yep. Yeah, so the amendments on page 4 and line 7 of the bill, if
The amendments,
There.
I do have them too, Delegate Ruth. The amendments address what I had noted down, the quarterly meetings and the MDOT chair. The problem is that the amendments don't address the fiscal note.
So let's talk about first what the bill does, and then how the amendments affect the bill. Yes, the fiscal note says 3 million. We got a letter from from Delegate Ruth as it relates to the fiscal note, a kind of a reevaluation, and it says 50, I believe it says potentially 50 to $100,000.
Now, where did this number come from?
That is the number I think MDOT says they may need for staff. Is oh, I see Matt Mickler on the line. Hey, Matt. You're on mute.
All right, sorry, can everybody hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you. Matt Michler, Director of Government Affairs for MDOT Secretary's Office. Yes, the number that you received, Chairwoman Boyce, was the MDOT submission on this. I'm not entirely positive where the $3 million number came from, but we had, based on our assessment and our response, it had been a $50,000 to $100,000 impact to MDOT.
Okay. And so just for everyone knows that the HB 731 is a wildlife protections and highway crossings, and it just establishes essentially a connectivity, the Maryland Connectivity Coalition, and the Wildlife Connectivity Fund. And so a part of the folks who are part of the coalition of the Connectivity Coalition is essentially MDOT, SHA, planning, and I believe DNR, with DNR, I believe, at the helm, if I got that correct. No.
The amendments make SHA the chair of the
Okay, I was talking about the general bill,
Oh.
so sorry. But
Sorry.
yeah. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So for the bill sponsor, Delegate Ruth, my question is, why is it called a coalition? I mean, I've seen in bills, I've seen committees, and I've seen task forces. Coalition has kind of a different meaning to me. It sounds like it's a task force, but maybe we didn't want to use that language. Why the word coalition? I've never seen that in a state bill like this before.
Thank you for the question, Delegate Foley. And it's called a coalition because I guess partly because I was looking at what some other states have done, and other states have created these coalitions. This is actually a group of not only government representatives, but also representatives of various NGOs as well. And we actually have been meeting as a coalition for close to 2 years now, informally, and this just sort of formalizes that and sets some procedures or actually tasks, I guess SHA with assistance from DNR with setting procedures for the coalition. It's not really a task force, because a task force to me implies a limited time frame that it's going to work on a task, whereas this is something that would be ongoing as needed.
Delegate Foley, is there anything else?
No, that was it, Madam Chair.
Any other questions on this discussion of this bill?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to point something out based on what Delegate Ruth just said. That this what you call it, would Delegate Ruth, would you see this as being a substantive coalition? It's definitely not a task force. Task force is purely advisory. Do you think this coalition has substantive duties?
Oh, thank you for the question, Patrick. And it really is intended to be advisory as well. And I believe the bill specifically says that SHA has the final authority over any decisions.
It does say that about placement of the projects.
Yeah, so I mean, the intent is that this would be a way to share expertise and data, and work together on these things, which is actually what we have been doing with this coalition. And Misty Booz is on the call. She's actually been organizing the coalition meetings. If I don't know if she had anything to add to that. But basically, it would be primarily advisory.
Could,
This is important because it has a delegate and a senator member. It would have to be purely advisory or else it would be a separation of powers issue.
Thank you.
It seems to go up close. I don't know if I would say it goes over the line. Just something to think about.
Certainly happy to amend it if, if we need to make it clear that it's advisory.
and the other question I'm gonna ask, and I hate to ask, but could this coalition exist without legislation? Or does it need legislation to exist?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It does, I mean, it exists now without legislation, but by having the legislation, it creates some specific tasks for the coalition and guidance, and puts into place that this coalition would would be in place. And during this administration, I'm sure that we would continue to meet. We want to put something into place for the long term so that no matter what administration is in place, we can continue to meet and go forward.
Anything else? Any other questions? I'm sorry, Delegate Ruth, you had another question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I also just wanted to mention that some of the other states that have this have MOUs for their coalition. I don't know if, given what Patrick said, if that would cross this over the line, but that was certainly something that I envisioned as a possibility. That would be up to SHA whether to do that or not. Also, in terms of the fiscal note, I did want to point out that in the MDOT letter, it also talks about putting this as a checkbox on the registration form for donations, and it mentions two other programs, Tremendous Maryland and the Traumatic Brain Injury Fund, that also have an optional donation, and those raised in FY24. One raised 63,844, the other raised 137. So 137,000, sorry. And so if this fund were to raise equivalent amounts, it would likely cover most of the costs in the fiscal.
If folks make donations.
Yes.
Monies are attained to put into it, okay. Any other thoughts or questions? Well, hearing none, it is 3 o'clock, and I think especially the pro tem and I have to run to another meeting. We are meeting tomorrow at our usual time, and some of these bills will be back on it. So if I can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. We're adjourned.